welcome my friends, welcome back to Project TAS. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you've watched any of my previous videos, thank you for returning to my channel. Today we're doing another Blake 7 episode review from Season 3. As always, I will point out that this review will inevitably touch upon certain plot elements of this episode, and may even reveal developments for the series of Blake 7 as a whole. So if you haven't seen this episode or anything else in terms of Blake 7, a huge spoiler alert is in order. In case you wish to do a bit of Blake 7 catch-up prior to watching this review, you have been warned. Right, let's get to it, shall we? For a little man, I'm a wonderful mover, wouldn't you say? Indeed. And for a Blake 7 episode, it has a suspiciously Star Trek sounding episode title, wouldn't you say? Never mind. Vila has had entire plot strands given to him. His special skills, so to speak, has been an ever-present since we saw it in action in Time Squad, and he has arguably the most defined characteristics and personality of the entire series. But only now does he get an entire episode which he can truly call his own. Only now and finally do we get the Vila episode. I'll be honest, this isn't one of my favourites. It has a sort of innocent, child-friendly charm that runs through it, which is kind of odd given certain elements and suggestions in it, I will explain in due course. But given how dark and edgy and negative Blake 7 is meant to be, this is a little too happy in certain parts. Too cute. But then, I don't think it could be anything else if it's going to be a Vila-centred episode. I'm not saying he's overly happy and certainly not that cute, although it depends what you're into, but I'll give City at the Edge of the World its dues, in that at no point does it ever deviate from the character that Vila is. He never suddenly becomes all headstrong and dynamic, or turn into a Superman. He's nervous and whiny, and funny and kooky, just as he always has been, and will continue to be. He's resourceful, which is another way of saying he's a nerd. He's eccentric, which is another way of saying he's weird. And yet he gains the trust and respect of the psychotic Baben, manages to hold the guards at bay, becomes the saviour of Null and his people, and best of all, he gets the girl. That's a lot of characters I've just mentioned that we need to talk about, and I think I've talked about Vila enough for the time being, so let's crack on. Firstly, we get a baddie that I would have loved to see again in the series, albeit he's something of an idiot, and how he didn't get himself and the rest of his consortium killed at an earlier date is frankly amazing. But Colin Baker's Baben the Berserker is one of the richest characters, never mind baddies, of Blake 7. Baker plays him like he's been playing this character forever. I'll be honest, I've never watched much Doctor Who, so it's possible that Mr. Baker plays Baben as a slightly more homicidal doctor, but it works for me, and we watch him as if this is the 10th time Baben has shown up. It isn't, but I suppose it's just as well he blew himself up at the end, as if he had lived, I would have always hoped to see him again, and been disappointed that I wouldn't. One guest character who did manage to get through a Blake 7 episode alive is Carol, Vila's love interest for the episode, which is quite a feat, not only for the low life expectancy guest characters have in Blake 7, but love interests in particular. Gan's random admirer was caught by a stray spear in Cygnus Alpha, Dana's Justin and Tarrant Ziona would all snuff it in Season 4, Avon would actually kill his love interest a couple of episodes after this one. I don't know if we would count Jenna's Gola from The Keeper, or Servalan's Jarvik from Harvest to Kairos, as proper love interests or love stories, but they still ended up dead. Inga survived, of course, but she was Blake's cousin before she was his girlfriend. Anyway, Carol. Yes, she's a good character. Another one who it may have been good to see again. She starts off a lot more menacing than she ends up. One minute she's shooting weapons out of the hands of her repulsive colleagues, and the next she needs to cuddle up to Vila when she sees a couple of skeletons. A lack of consistency in character, no doubt, but I personally think she was probably playing up to Vila when she was little manning him, as a means of keeping him in line, putting the fear in him so he does what he's told. As his enemy, they make an amusing pair. As his romantic interest, they're adorable. So either way, she works for me.
What were you looking so pleased about? Baben isn't going to share whatever's in there, you know.
That's true. Baben will not share it.
Null, the leader, or priest, or both, or whatever his title, Valentine Dial was a very tall man with a beautiful voice. So beautiful, in fact, I'm sure that's his voice we hear talking to Vila and Carol when they first arrive on the spaceship.
The translator unit has identified your language as Terran, and is translating my words into a form which I hope you will understand. I regret that we cannot meet in person, but by the time you hear this, I shall have been dead for over 3,000 years.
He serves his purpose and seems to come more into the frame as the story goes on, and he reveals that he knew more about the door than he let on to Baben. To say his performance is understated is an understatement, except when Baben threatens to execute more of his people, or when those same people enter the city. His face, or vocal inflections, don't change. In fact, he actually comes across as more robotic than anything else. Yet he has a certain presence, probably created by Dial's height, and that voice, and for that reason I quite like Null. Sherm is the quintessential sidekick slimeball in terms of his appearance, his voice, his mannerisms, the one that really wants to kill everyone, including Villa, but can't because of Baben's authority. Again, he serves his purpose, and John C. Carney plays him perfectly well, with a certain comic touch, but for this reason, even when he's supposed to be scary and threatening, you can never take him seriously. Entertaining, yes, but you don't fear him when up against our heroes, not even Villa, and it's no surprise when he gets zapped. Okay, so these aren't revolutionary characters, and Carol is a little inconsistent, but the characters serve the episode well. What about the episode itself? I've actually not really discussed the story of City on the Edge of Forever, I mean the world, probably because it is more akin to Alice Through the Looking Glass than a Blake 7 episode. Like I said before, this comes across more innocent and happy and cute than any other Blake 7 episode. I've said that certain Blake 7 episodes could stand apart due to their story or setting, or, as I will talk about in an upcoming review, their style and presentation. This one has a different tone, this happy fairy tale tone that comes in full force as soon as Villa cracks the force field and enters holding Carol's suddenly subservient hand. It even has fairy tale music coming in towards the end. I was wondering if the Cheshire Cat or Gandalf the Grey would be waiting on the other side of the door. Once they find themselves on Villa World, Home World, whatever world, in a very poorly realised CSO landscape the size of John and Yoko's bed, we have not only left the world we were on before, but the world of Blake 7. Even the blowing up and shooting of all of Baben's men in the darkened corridors can't shake this storybook feeling. And even blowing the city up doesn't do anything other than make me go, oh god, not again. Not another city or civilization being blown to Kingdom Come. Can't anything remain unruined past the end of a Blake 7 story? Don't get me wrong, the story we have is fine. It's good as a story in its own right, and I suppose that it worked in the Blake 7 setting thanks to Villa, the character that takes us through it. And that very much is down to Michael Keaton's performance, the ever-reliable Villa performance that he always gives. But the rest of it, the stuff that actually tries to remain Blake 7, that exists around this central story, well, that's just it. It exists around it, but doesn't really succeed in connecting to it. All the shooting of the bad guys, the grenades, Avon and Callie's investigation, and the arguments on the Liberator. It finds it difficult to really fit in with the Villa-Carol central story. And the two tones of story trying to be told here, in my opinion, kind of hinder the episode, rather than serving it. We've got Tarrant being an absolute douche to Villa in the opening scene, acting like a douche throughout, and never really getting any proper comeuppance or expressing any proper remorse, in spite of him saying he regrets his actions, incredibly apologising to Callie instead of Villa. This whole woman who killed Baben, girl who killed Baben, I have to admit, this made me cringe a little. I don't know why, but it did. And also, how can Baben be that big a deal to the Federation? In addition to his wonderful portrayal, it's refreshing to have a baddie that isn't the Federation, that isn't Servalan. But Baben is more of a privileged buffoon than a genuine Federation outlaw. Not too dissimilarly from Sherm, there's a lack of seriousness in his character, or at least a lack of seriousness that one can take in his character. Never once did I ever think that he would win. He's easily kept in the dark by Null, and he blows himself up in a fit of anger. The plot contrivances like Baben escaping from Dana off-screen, the luck that the ship had already landed, and that air bleeds through a force field, or the ease in which Villa opens every force field after the apparent difficulty he had in opening the first one. These aren't major issues, actually. I'm not sure there are any major issues with the plot, other than its lack of cohesiveness. But in addition to not believing that Baben could have ever been in the top 10 most wanted, never mind only having Blake ahead of him, I also don't understand how Carol ended up working for Baben. She clearly isn't a killer, like the rest of them. She quickly found herself preferring Villa's company to that of the ruthless ragtag she's been with for however long she was on Team Baben. What was she doing with Baben the bloody butcher in the first place? And why did Baben take her on in the first place? Did he share in Villa's taste of legs? Please tell me no. Despite these issues, this is a perfectly entertaining episode. Not one of my favourites though. It seems to make the right moves in terms of the character that takes us on the yellow brick road to CSO Villa World, but while other episodes that stand out as independent or unique still feel like the Blake 7 universe, this one doesn't quite pull it off. This isn't necessarily a terrible thing, but I wonder if this is why I bypass this episode if I'm looking through B7 episodes to watch. All that said, I still think it's going to grab onto the 2-star level. Vila doesn't let himself down, nor does anyone, and the supporting cast we get is one I wouldn't mind seeing again. If the rest of the Blake 7 crew had taken the day off, it might have actually worked better. But then, is this Blake 7 or not? What do you think? That concludes my review for The City at the Edge of the World. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video, please share this video, please subscribe to my channel, and please check out my other Blake 7 episode reviews. And I trust, Carol, that Vila didn't turn out to be so much of a little man. Actually, let's not go down that lewd path. Keep your hat on.